bam.
Back again.
God, I hope these storms don't knock... I mean, you had a storm and it knocked your power out, right?
Yeah, we had the remnants of the Hurricane Isaiah that was making its way up the coastline. This past Tuesday, which was August 4th, for those of you keeping track at home, we got hit with the tail end of it, and it was just around long enough.
Yeah, the hurricane don't even
knock out the power.
Don't even want to have anything to do with the COVID-19 either. It's just like, yeah, we're gonna come on the land, but then we're like, fuck it, no.
Yeah, I don't think it was supposed to make landfall in Florida. I don't think it did, and it just
kind of just swooped up.
It was like not having any of this.
Yeah, we got a little bit of. We're still
up.
getting some storms here, but like it's nothing that we're not getting like high winds or anything like that.
Yeah, it's not high winds. And I was telling Steven before this started, it only was like high winds and heavy rain for like an hour and a half, something like that, and it was just long enough to knock out the power in most places and create a lot of havoc with down power lines and down trees and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was just a complete mess. I was telling him I didn't have power from 4:30 in the afternoon on Tuesday until 2 a.m. That's how long it took to restore power.
An 8-hour just prison sentence. Just
basically, you don't realize how much you rely on power and internet until you don't have it anymore. And then it becomes very, very apparent that it's a necessity.
I mean, we can't even do this show, without any of that stuff.
Yeah, hypothetically, if we were still recording on Tuesdays or whatever day, I may not have had internet. I was actually really close to telling Steven that we couldn't do our new episode of Cinema Discovery Project because I didn't know if I would have the internet back up by the day we usually record. But luckily, everything got restored. Everything was back up. I got to watch my beloved movies that I was missing out on that 8-hour window of. And yeah, so
here we are. Here we are for another episode. And if you listened to the last episode, The Big City, which was great. It's one of the great movies.
Yes, it was.
At the end of that episode, which we do every episode, the next person pitches a movie for the next episode. And it was my turn, and I pitched the 1966 movie directed by Harold Ramis, Multiplicity.
Ooh, you said 1966.
Did I say 1966? 1996. I just rewinded.
It's like work is first, and my family is a close second. I'm a distant third, bringing up the rear.
By a miracle of modern science,
I just need a little time for myself.
Doug Kinney is about to get the one thing he needs more of.
Doug, your clone.
Himself.
So, what do I feed it?
Now,
I turn the two of us, we're gonna get a lot of stuff done. We're gonna kick some ass. We're gonna be awesome.
there are two Dougs to go around.
I'll get the dishes, and I'll drive the kids to school.
Thanks.
Two Dougs to share the load.
When'd you have time to do all this?
I suggest we all do them every morning.
Find out what he had for breakfast.
But it's still not enough Dougs
I hate to ask you, honey, but could you pick up the kids?
to get the job done.
2. Like you to meet 3. Hi, how are you?
Bit of a different time frame we're talking about here.
Yeah, it probably would have been a different movie. The special effects probably wouldn't have been nearly as good with the replacement of faces.
No, they wouldn't have.
But yes.
Yes, go on.
Yeah, Multiplicity, 1996, starring Michael Keaton, Andy McDowell, and a lot of character actors in this movie, that you might notice some from somewhere, and But basically, this movie's about a, kind of one of the most overused kind of themes of movies, the husband who works too much. That could almost be its own genre, and how he deals with that, and he's trying to find a way to find more time for his family and things, and so he meets this guy who knows how to clone people, and so he clones himself to try to make more time for his family.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. For those of you at home, this was my first time ever seeing it, but I will say this, though. We've talked about it before, but growing up, going to the movie theater, I remember seeing a trailer for this movie either in the theaters or on television or something like that back in the day. Because I remember the movie. I just didn't see it.
Well, I mean, obviously nobody saw it because
I was 9
nobody saw this
years
movie
old.
because it only made like $21 million on a $45 million budget.
Yeah, it wasn't a big success. And keep in mind, this is 1996. This is 7 years after Michael Keaton was in Batman.
Yeah.
8 years after he was in Beetlejuice. This is him kind of going back to his comedy
Mr.
roots.
Mom days.
Mr. Mom days, and there's some Mr. Mom vibes in this movie.
There is.
I found, and like I said, it was the first time for me. And of course, it is directed by Harold Ramis, who has unfortunately since passed away. He passed away in 2014. Many people obviously know him for Ghostbusters. He was not only a writer, but he also starred in Ghostbusters. He was of course a director. He directed.
Trading Places.
Caddyshack, National Lampoon's Vacation, Groundhog Day, Analyze This, Analyze
Did he do
That, Bedazzled.
Did he do Trading Places? Or am I thinking? Is that no? That's Landis. That's Landis.
Yes.
Yeah.
He also directed Bedazzled, like I
Yeah.
said, which is underrated. The Ice Harvest, and he directed what looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 episodes of The Office.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh.
In the modern movies, he was the father of Seth Rogen in Knocked Up, wasn't he?
I believe he was. Yes, he
Yeah.
was. He just his credit is just Ben's dad.
Yeah.
He was in. I remember he was in Orange County, and I think wasn't he like the dean of admissions at Stanford? I remember in that movie.
I don't know.
He was in he was in Groundhog Day. He was in that movie Airheads, which is kind of underrated.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then of course he was in Ghostbusters 1 and 2, like I said, which I think is where most people know him from. I remember when he passed away, everyone went down to the Ghostbuster house in New York, and they all left like Twinkies because of his famous like Twinkie monologue in Ghostbusters. So he has a lot of comedic roots in both writing, acting, and directing, and this movie's a comedy.
Yes.
And this was, like we said, Steven's pick. So,
this is just
interesting.
I wanted to go with something lighter. We've been doing mostly heavy stuff, and this is just a comedy that I grew up with that I very much enjoyed, and it recently finally got a Blu-ray. It's great to watch it finally in widescreen.
had you seen it in non-widescreen?
No, yeah,
before?
I think I used to have the DVD, and it was still full screen.
Dreaded full screen.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Yeah, which is, I mean, I don't want to get too techie, too nerd techie here, but it is a 2:3:9:1 aspect ratio. So to get it to a full screen, 4:3, the amount of footage they had to like cut off of the the sides and top must have been significant.
It had to be.
Must have been a lot. It's kind of interesting that it has a 2:3:9:1 aspect ratio for a comedy, because that's like CinemaScope. That's kind of reserved for like action movies and epics and.
Well, dude, I mean, we got
stuff
so
like
many
that.
Michael Keatons in this movie. You want to make sure you get them
I
all
know.
in the frame.
All in the frame at one
Yeah.
time. Yeah, because they do a lot of wide shots of the multiple Michael Keaton
Multiple Keatons.
clones in this movie. And like Steven said, this movie does deal with cloning, so it's a bit of a sci-fi thrown in there, but it's mostly a comedy, family drama, somewhat.
But you don't. That aspect of it is not like
No,
a focus.
they don't-
they don't get into the tech or anything. Like it's
yeah,
not.
they don't even explain to you really how it goes along. You don't get that scene from DNA from Jurassic Park telling you how they cloned the dinosaurs.
Yeah, there's no frog
You don't get
DNA
anything like
or
that.
any of that. Yeah.
Dino DNA.
Yeah, we don't get any of that. It's just like, hey, I can basically Xerox people. Okay, how much does a clone job cost?
Yeah, they
Basic
show
clone
you
job.
the process though. They show you the process when they initially do it, and it looks weird. It looks like they could just like clone them on like a mold of clay or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like Steven said, the movie starts off right away. The conflict is established with Michael Keaton. He's just he's a busy guy. He doesn't have enough time for his job or his family. Right away in this movie, we get Eugene Levy pops up.
Yeah.
And he's like the concrete guy. Basically, Michael Keaton like works for a construction company.
He's kind of like one of the like a foreman.
He's like a foreman. Yeah.
Like he's in charge of making sure people get the job done right. And
he's like and basically, so he goes to this job site and Eugene Levy's character he's just sitting there like whatever, like the job's not done, but like the people are working, he's just standing there.
Yeah, he's just supervising.
He's just supervising, and Michael Keaton like goes up and was like, "Oh, nice job," and it's like, unfortunately, it's the wrong address for where you should be tearing up and redoing.
They're redoing the driveway, yeah.
And it's like, and it's like right away, it's like, oh damn it!
You can get the idea that the stress he has to deal with on a daily basis, and and it's funny, how it's played out. He's just like, it's like, Eugene Levy, doesn't want to take ownership for it, the mistake. So he's just like, I'm not gonna say that it's my fault, without a lawyer present, or
Yeah, and it's Eugene Levy in like a
goatee,
a weird mustache. Yeah, it's pre-American Pie Eugene Levy, but like Christopher Guest era.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's always in Christopher Guest movies. Eugene Levy, he only pops up on a few times in this movie.
Yeah, he's just a little bit role, spots
Yeah.
in it. But basically, Keaton's like, okay, so now we're gonna go to work and we're gonna do both driveways, and he's like, and he just kind of tells him like, if you say anything else again, I'm gonna beat you to death with a drywall hammer.
Yeah, with a drywall hammer. And you get the idea that Eugene Levy's character is just a screw up.
He's just a screw up.
He's just a screw up. He and you also get the idea that, Michael Keaton's character he's not in a lucrative position financially when it comes to this foreman business, because like they can't afford to mess up this job and to do two jobs for the price of one. They just can't do it. And you get that in, I think, the next scene where like his boss is basically chewing him out, saying, "Why am I getting a call from like some rich person in like the Hollywood Hills saying that someone tore up his driveway?"
And the thing is he kind of takes the hit. He's like, he, instead of throwing that guy under the bus, which he probably should, he as he says later, he's too kind of chicken shit to do it, but he takes the blame for it and says, don't worry about it. Well, I'll take care of it. We'll get it done on my own time. And he's like, his boss is like, what time do you have? You don't have any other time.
Yeah, and he's like, basically he's gonna have to work overtime.
Well, yeah,
weekends.
some coworker who's kind of like what I like to call the shit weasel, I don't take that term as my own. Christian Harloff from the shit weasel is a word I heard from him, which I every time I see a guy like this in a movie, I'm like, he's the shit weasel. He's the guy that just like makes things more difficult, and he's like always butting his way in. So he comes by and he's like, "Hey, we got to do what it takes. We got to work weekends, And then his boss calls him into the office, like, in my office, like, we're gonna talk about this. So now he's gonna have to do more work and not get paid more for it. So,
unfortunately,
yeah. So
he's gonna be doing
So we finally go to the home, and Andie MacDowell.
We're introduced to Andie MacDowell, who is one of my personal
She's great
favorites.
I loved her. I loved her
Andie
in the
MacDowell.
recent film she did, Ready or Not, where she was. Did you not see it?
Oh my goodness, yes,
she was the mom. Yeah.
Yes, she was. Yeah. For some reason, I'm thinking of Magic Mike XXL because she was in that movie.
Okay.
When they're on that road trip and they end up just at that random like house, like it's her house. Anyway, I was thinking of that. But of course, I'm a big fan of Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which is
of course
an early film from
Steven Soderbergh.
Steven Soderbergh. I almost said David Cronenberg. It has to be
hey,
but Soderbergh.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
it would be wrong, but
Soderbergh,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I've always been a big fan of hers after watching that movie. She was in Four Weddings and a Funeral. Is another one.
Of course, Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day, which we just mentioned. I wonder if there's
another Ramis.
A Harold Ramis connection there. She's also in Hudson Hawk, and she's a great. I've always liked her.
Yeah, she's got great presence. She's got charisma. She's also hot.
She's
also
a
hot.
stunning actress.
She's also
too.
hot.
Yeah, she's very beautiful, and she's like, and she also they let her use her real voice because I believe she's Southern, so they let her. She's from South Carolina.
Yeah.
And they let her use her voice in this film specifically.
You could really hear it. Yeah, you could really hear it in this movie.
And it works. It works for her. It works very well for her. But right away we get established that he has. A wife, Annie McDowell, two young children, and he doesn't have enough time to do the stuff he needs to do at home and do the stuff he needs to do with work.
Yeah, the hot water heater's messed up. He was supposed he was supposed to go to Campfire Girls.
Yeah, he was supposed to fix the hot water heater. He can't fix it.
He makes a joke. She's like, "You missed Campfire Girls." He's like, "Look, I'm not in the Campfire Girls. I'm a brownie or something like that, whatever he says."
Yeah. and we get, and it's just like, and then she isn't this the scene, maybe this happens later, you'll remember, when she talks about her going back to work.
Not yet. Yeah, it's
not yet.
Yeah,
okay. So there's a scene of that later on where she wants to go back to work. I believe she works in real estate.
Yeah. She does real estate.
But we haven't gotten to there yet. But there's a they have a great back and forth chemistry, even though the relationship is strained a little bit because of, he's got to work nonstop basically.
I think we're setting up the fact that there's a lot of things that he's neglecting by working so much, and with the news, he in this scene he kind of like breaks it to her that he's got to do more work and he's gonna have to work more, and she's like, "You're already not here at all. Like how are you gonna do more work?" And they're funny back and forth, though it's the news sucks is funny because they talk about, like, she talks about something like like a video store guy, like,
I was just gonna mention a video store guy.
Yeah, and he's talking about talking about himself, like she's talking about him, but he's just been like, "You're cheating on me," like, "It's the video store guy, huh?" Yeah, I knew it was maybe him, but I wasn't really sure, like. But yeah, they got great chemistry, and then by the end of the conversation, he just says, "Hey, I'll work through it. Well, I'll figure it out, and that's what you got to do, and that's what you got to do." When I've never had a family. I'm hopefully gonna have one maybe one day, but I with seeing my own parents, sometimes you just work through things, and it's stressful, and good relationships stick together, I guess. So
yeah, it's very difficult, complex, complicated, and unfortunately a lot of relationships don't hold up under the stress.
No, some people give
like
up,
this.
too.
Yeah,
sometimes it is
apart.
a lot, and with kids, hopefully you can do your best to hang in there,
right.
And that's what they're doing.
And so in the next scene, is this when he's at the when they're doing work at that medical school?
Yes, they're at that medical lab place where we meet our scientist, our doctor, played by Harris Yulin.
Yeah, Harris Yulin. He's a underrated actor, I think.
His name's Dr. Leeds.
Yeah, people probably haven't seen him. Not seen him. People probably don't know him by name, but you've seen him.
You've seen him in a lot of stuff. He was in Ghostbusters, too. He
was the judge in Ghostbusters 2. He's in Clear and Present Danger. He's in Scarface. I mean, he's just shows up and things. If any, heck, he's still working today.
Oh,
He was in the show that Netflix series Ozark. I mean,
he was the old man. Yeah, he was the old man that they lived in the house with. Yeah.
Yes, he was, and he's been a character actor now. Looks like since the 70s, basically, and he's been in a bunch of things. So you'll know him when you see him, and he's this doctor. And basically, what happens, and Stephen, you know it better than I do, is that they're doing work there, and then something goes wrong.
Something goes wrong with the pipe. A pipe leaks.
Yeah, like the water's starting to leak out of a pipe or flow out of a pipe, or
and he goes to try to fix it, and he makes it worse, and then he starts beating the shit out of stuff with the wrench.
And he's just drenched in water, just frustrated beyond belief, because this is another thing where, if you screw up at a job like this, you're liable for the damages that
Yeah.
you do and all that kind of stuff. Also,
Well, that'd put you behind and inspections
but-
and
yeah. Also, word to the wise: anybody doing any plumbing work anywhere, turn off the water.
Yeah.
Before you start messing around with pipes,
Yeah.
because you never know what's going to happen.
of course.
I've seen too many stories of people's houses getting accidentally flooded or pipes, opening up, and it's like, just turn off, find the water main, know where your water main is, and then make sure that's turned off or whatever, because then you get what happens here. So afterward, he's like trying to like dry off his clothes, and he's still frustrated, and then the doctor comes up to him and is like, what do you do? You seem to have a lot of stress. What do you do to like
Relax.
relax?
Ah.
And he's like, oh, I play golf. And he's like, oh, how often do you do it? He's like, oh, once a year or something like that.
Never.
Yeah, basically never. It's like,
Yeah, and then he's like, he's like, I think I can help you. Like, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't think I went to medical school. I don't think I can.
oh yeah, he brings him to his office. There's a scene where he's sitting on like a psychiatrist.
Well, I mean,
couch,
he
or a
before
therapist
he
couch.
invites him back, he tells him, he's like, I can help you. He's like, I don't think I think he thinks he's like, I can get you a job here, and he's like, I didn't go to medical school, so I can't. He's like, no, I can. My job. He's like, I create time, and he's very vague about what he does, and then he's like, okay, so then he does go
talks
and
to
see
him on
him,
the couch.
yeah.
And then he goes and like, yeah, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not that type of
Yeah.
doctor. And he's like, oh, what kind of doctor are you? And then this is when he starts explaining things. He says, I clone.
Yeah, he does it in
things.
a very like lead up way. He's like, it's like, first a clone, first it was like some kind of microorganism, and he's like, then it was a worm, and he's like,
Yeah.
God bless you, sir. He's like, then we did a chimp. And he's like, okay, and then he's like, last year, and then suddenly his own clone of himself walks in.
In. And I'll be honest, if I saw this in real life myself, I think I would start freaking out.
Yes.
He's very Michael Keaton's character, whose name is Doug, is very open to this whole idea. Very like, oh, okay, that seems to be
I love his reaction.
normal.
I love his reaction to the first time he says he creates clones. It's just I do this. This movie is one of the movies where like there's certain parts of it, even when it's little small things, that I actually have seen it so many times that I actually do it in real life. So like when he's like I make clones, and then he's like, okay, all right. He's like, well, that's it. It's like, I'm good.
Well,
So every once in a while, I'll be
mean-
like, if I hear something, I'm like, I don't believe it, I'm like, okay.
yeah.
But
That's one of those things where when someone says something so outrageous and you don't know how to react, you're like, oh, all right,
that's good enough for me.
All right, time for me.
It's just
Time for me to get going
the
now.
conviction of how he says it, the diction, just the way he delivers the line. I'm just like, it's hilarious. I think little things like that can be make or break
Yeah,
a
I'll
movie.
say- I'll say this about the movie: Michael Keaton is extremely diverse in his acting abilities, and the nuance he puts into this performance is more than I think the performance was probably looks
You're
like on
basically you're
paper.
saying he brought up the movie.
Yeah, he carried the
Yeah,
movie,
I
I
mean-
think, himself, just because the way in which, if you've ever seen Michael Keaton, in certain roles, he's like, he'll do extra stuff that you don't think someone else would do in a specific role. Like whether it's a body movement, it's a look, it's like, the way he pronounced like what you just said,
Yeah.
adds a little extra to it. And I think it really elevates this movie more than I think is on paper for his performance, for his character. Like you could have played this character straight up and the movie wouldn't have worked.
Well,
But he adds his little extra flair to it, his little extra movements and mannerisms, and you'll see it as we go along, as you see all these different clones, and we'll get into like how each one is different and shows a different personality. So,
But the one
moving
thing
on-
and the one thing you got to
Yeah,
remember about Keaton is he's also a comedian in real life. Like he was I mean, I don't know that he
Yes.
does a lot of work now, but he was a stand-up comedian. So comedy is kind of his core, like
Yeah.
to what he does. So
A lot of these, I mean, it's not it's how am I going to say this? A lot of great dramatic actors got their start in comedy.
well, yeah, I mean, personally,
Tom
I was
Hanks.
going to say personally, probably my favorite actor is Robin Williams.
Yeah. Started off as a stand-up comedian. Yeah.
I mean,
And he became a great dramatic actor.
yeah.
Won an Oscar for dramatic acting. I mean, so has Tom Hanks. Did it twice, back-to-back years. It's very fascinating how it really shows the depth of talent of certain individuals, that they're able to be that diverse.
Yeah.
Some can't do it. Some try and it just doesn't work. And it's unfortunate. I would say Jim Carrey is also
Definitely.
diverse in that range as well.
Adam
so-
Sandler on occasion.
Yeah, he does it on occasion. I still keep thinking of Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah.
I think about that movie a lot. It's just like that's one of his best performances.
Yeah.
Outside of what we just saw from Uncut Gems. But moving along, he asks, how much one of these clone
How much
jobs-
does a clone job, the standard, nothing fancy, just a
just
standard
straight,
basic clone job cost? And then he kind of just gives him a look like, I'll cut you a deal. Like.
Yeah, I don't think he ever pays him for it.
You don't see him paying for it, but I'm assuming he probably paid him some kind of like standard, or maybe he did it for free because he just wanted to experiment. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, it just it's for science.
Yeah. So now you go through a whole scene
see
of
the process.
of them getting set up, and of course Keaton's nervous. And he's just like,
Who isn't?
he's like, you're not going to make me look like that guy, are you? Like one of the assistants. He's like, I'm not going to turn out looking like him, right? And he's like, I hope not, And then he says like, it's not. It's like, have you seen The Fly? Which is a Cronenberg reference. He's like, he's like, he's got the hi Doug. I'm not gonna be like, yeah. So I'm not. He's like, nah, that's
a great reference.
Yeah,
because that's a science experiment gone wrong.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And so
how many movies have you seen where science experiments go wrong?
Most
all
of them.
The time? I mean, medical accidents happen in real life as well.
Of course, we just don't hear about them.
Happen in real life as well. Yeah, we don't. They usually, I haven't seen anyone get turned into a human fly lately.
Not lately.
I don't know
Not lately.
if that's happened. If it is, they kept it really hush hush.
Definitely.
So we see all the like a montage of the cloning procedure where they take like blood from him, they give him like injections and all kinds of stuff happening.
Well, before they put him to
sedated.
sleep, he's just like he's like count backwards from 10. He's like, yeah, that's gonna work. 10, but and then he just nods off after 10.
Yeah, every time I've had a procedure done, they've always say count backwards from 100.
Yeah.
And I always get to like, I don't know, 95, 96, and then I'm out. And so
yeah, they're scanning them.
that.
It's like old
scanning
90s
them.
technology.
Yeah, those old big, heavy computer monitors.
Beep, boop, beep, and you hear
that I
noises
used
like
to have
beep, boop,
back-
beep, boop, beep, beep, beep.
Back in elementary school.
Yeah.
Those things are heavy as heck. And we see like his clone come to life, if you will. Like he just kind of
It's like it's underneath a Ziploc like thing. It's like
a mold.
it's
like
gross looking. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
So yeah, and
pretty
then it makes like a microwave sound, like it's done. Ding.
Oh yeah, there's like an egg timer, like kitchen timer, like ding, and he's done. And so then we get a little trickery scene where he's waking up, and the doctor's waking him up, checking his pupils, his eyes, and
he's like, so
and he's like, oh, is it done?
how did it go?
Did it work?
And then
it go?
the clone walks in, right?
But
And he's like, is that it? He's like, wait, I'm not it. You're it.
yeah, who's it?
Who's the
Yeah, like, which one's the
original?
clone?
And so the doctor, he's like, let me show you this. So the one that just got woken up, he pulls his ear back and it shows a 2, and he's like, you're the clone. He's like, but wait a second, I remember everything. Like, it's like, yeah, you have all of his memories leading up to the procedure. So that's why you think you're him, but you're the clone. So yeah. And then he's like, you'll have matching IDs. Here you go. And great. And he's like, he just like looks at him. He's like, astonishing. yes. And he walks away, and so now both Keatons are standing there looking at each other, and one of my favorite things, you know, he's just like, so, where are you from? And then he just have like a moment, and they both laugh, and then it cuts away.
Yeah, and so, I don't know, because it was the first time watching the film for me, so things got a little confusing when it came to, like, this. It initially was confusing, you know, who was the clone, who was real, but then things become really definitive or distinctive.
Yeah, as to
who is who.
As each clone kind of starts to have its own experiences, their personalities start to, like, very much, like...
become diverse.
Diverse, yeah.
And distinct.
Yeah.
And so initially he sets him up in his, like, garage.
Well, it's like a
garage apartment.
Yeah.
And basically, there's a whole series like, yeah, this is where you're gonna stay, and you know,
we need to get the satellite dish so we get all the sports channels and all the. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you know, Laura, who is Andy McDowell's character. I don't think she'll go for that. And he's like, oh, he says like, oh, you're so whipped. He's like, whoosh, and all that.
You're whipped,
stuff.
man. Yeah.
And you start right away. You start to see the difference between the original and the clone, and what ends up becoming apparent, like throughout you know, as the movie goes along, is this version of the clone adopts all of his, like, masculine character traits.
Yeah.
To the
his
fullest.
Workaholic.
Like, this is his masculine version.
Because, I mean, he's basically, from the get-go, just basically becomes the guy that goes to work. I mean, he's the guy. He is the guy that goes to work. And so, yeah, he becomes very...
So they set up some ground rules, basically.
So then Laura shows up, and they both wave and say hey to her.
Oh, yeah, they do. And
then Keaton has to, and then number one has to knock number two down.
Yeah, so basically, like Steven said, the original Doug will the one who will do, like, the home stuff, and then the other, and then, you know, they initially call him just Two.
Yeah.
You know, we got the Two, but he later adopts a name, and it's Lance.
I don't think it's his. It's just the name he used with the girls, but we'll get back to that later.
Right, we will. So he'll be doing all, like, the work with the construction company and all that kind of stuff, and then we kind of see, like, another montage of that happening, of how that's going.
Yeah, like they
initially he goes to the, like.
Well, see,
they both end up showing up to work at the same time and confuse the heck out of the secretary.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say first we get the original, original Doug's point of view, and he's talking to his wife saying, "Hey, you can go back to work." He gives her the good news; she can go back to work, because he knows he's gonna be freed up to help her, because, you know, or maybe is that after? That might be after.
Well, they have that conversation. I want to say before the cloning occurs. I thought they had. I
think it's after the first day. I think it's because he wakes up to go to work, but we get it from the number two's point of view. So number two goes in first, and he's he's getting things going, and then he goes into a meeting, and then number one, the original, shows up, and he's like, "Didn't we just see you go into the meeting?" And then he comes up with this whole scheme of, like, I spilled coffee on my shirt. Then I left.
I had to change my shirt. I had a shirt in the car, and then I had to get my briefcase for
the meeting that I'm
already started.
And then he's like, "Well, so, but then what's going to happen is I'm going to go back out, and then after the meeting's done, you'll see me come out in the original shirt." And she's like, "What?" He's like, "Hey, just forget this ever happened," you know. And so he then, which this is another thing I do sometimes. So he gets on the phone to call his number two. And he, like, puts on this voice, and I sometimes will do this voice with people, like, hey, Carl, say it's Carl Rogerson. Carl Rogerson's here. You know, like, he tries to come up with a name, and he can't think of a name, so he's just, like, two first names. So then he gets number two, and number two's like, "Who is this?" He's like, "It's me. It's you. It's us." Oh, yeah. Okay. Let me take this in my office. So
yeah, he's like...
He's like, "Well, I'm just, I did all this work." He tries to say, "I'll go to this other, you know, site and work on that." And he's like, "No, I've already done it." He's like, "What do I do?" And he's like, "Live it up, man. This is what we're supposed to be doing, right?"
I know.
So what does he do? He's so then he goes home, and this is this is when that scene I think happens where his wife comes home and he tells her the good news about how he's gotten help. He's like, we got a new guy.
Oh, yeah, he has an assistant.
Yeah,
he's a new guy. You don't know.
You don't know him.
Yeah.
But who is he?
I trust him like I trust myself.
Yeah. He's a new guy. He's a really new guy, very new guy. You don't know him. He's new. So he's a new guy. So that's what you're saying. Yeah. He's new, But he's going to be taking care of everything, And so, this is when he tells her she can take her real estate job because her friend that she used to work with, who has now gotten promoted, is now offering her old job. And so now she gets to go back to work, and of course this makes her very happy, and she's like, we got to put the kids to bed early tonight, sex, obviously. Yes. Of course. She's like, we got to get the kids, to bed early, and he's like, what time is it? He's like, it's 6:00. Kids' bed! Tells him, yeah. That's early enough. That's good enough, And then it cuts away, and then I think, where are we at? I think we cut to, this is the second time we see Sean Levy's character, where they're at that work site, and he shows up, and Doug 2 is like, what time is it? He's like,
it's like 2:00.
He's like, it's 9:00 in New York, which makes it.
Yeah, it's like, it's 2:00.
It's like 2:30 here.
It's 5:00 in New York. He's like, why is your watch on New York time?
I never got it changed. I don't know it's like. What time did I tell you to be here? 1:30. So he's an hour late, and so he decides he's gonna fire him finally because this one is a no nonsense. This Doug's a no nonsense worker guy, and so then he puts him in his truck and he
drags him from the work site.
Yeah.
And Eugene Levy's character is such a
dope.
He's not. Yeah. He's a nothing. Really, he's a nothing. He's tries to protest, but not really.
Yeah. And so he puts him in his truck and then takes it out of gear and then it rolls backwards out of the site.
Yeah. And then everyone's standing around. He's like, what is everybody standing around for?
Get back to work. He's like, you fired him, man. He's like, yeah, he sucks at his job. He's like, yeah, but he's got 16 kids. It's like, yeah, he's been married 7 times. That's not my fault.
This Doug is more, like we just said, straight-laced, masculine,
no nonsense,
strong-willed, no nonsense version of Doug's personality. And we get to see other diverse versions of Doug's personality later on.
But now he gets a call from his wife.
Yes.
And she really needs his help because the kids, specifically the daughter, has a picture day at her ballet.
Yes, and they need to be picked up, and she can't do it. And then he's like, then he calls.
Yeah, he agrees to do it.
Original Doug.
Agrees to do it, and then he calls Doug 1, who's about to tee off at golf.
Yes.
And it's funny because as soon as he's in his backswing, he gets the ring, and then he throws the club as he's.
Yeah, so he rushes to get the kids, get his daughter all ready, get her, and then brings her to the ballet, and then the woman running the ballet says, "Oh, you didn't get the message? Oh yeah, pictures tomorrow."
This shit has happened to me before too. Not specifically pictures, but when you've really worked hard to get to something, and you think you're I just made it, and then they're like, "Oh, it's been rescheduled," and I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I went out of my way to get here."
That's happened to me too.
God, I hate that.
It's really, really frustrating.
And it's really and so Keaton's
very relatable.
Doug's yeah, you're just kidding. It's we're here for the pictures, and she's like, yeah, they're tomorrow, and he's like, get a photographer down here right now. She's like, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, it was interesting. We get no conclusion to that story.
Yeah, really. It doesn't matter. It's just about putting him. It's about putting him through the ringer.
Yeah. It's another thing. It's another. If anything, it's kind of a foreshadowing to something that happens a little later, because even though he's got a clone now doing his day job, he still has stresses in the stuff that he's doing now.
Well, I mean, the thing, if though this is on the surface a very simple comedy, it's not too complex, not too deep, but it is a movie about somebody that's stretched themselves too thin, and like I said before, this is a movie about a man who is a workaholic that only is not spending enough time with his family, and what's happening here is, though, the thing is he's not changing anything. He thinks he's creating a solution, but the solution's not, he's not changing anything to get the solution other than splitting himself up and making things more complicated.
He's not, well, if anything, he's not changing himself.
He's not changing. He's not willing to change who he is to make his life better. He's just trying to find a loophole,
Yeah, he's trying to find solutions to problems in the short term.
Well, he's trying to do it the half-ass way by splitting it.
Yeah.
But by keeping, he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to be able to keep doing the work he's doing because he doesn't think he has any other choice.
Right.
And so he continues to make things more complicated by cloning himself more times. And
we'll see that coming up soon.
Yeah.
Where, I don't know, do you want to cut to the dinner scene?
First the kids, he takes the kids back, and they're
the football game.
Well, no, first
it's pretty funny.
Well, I think we skipped that. It was somewhere in there. It was like during the first day. It was before he went golfing, and he went to his son's football game, and the coach is having a hard time. He's getting berated by all the parents saying, "Hey, my son needs to play. I didn't pay for this for him to only play 5 minutes, less than 5,
Yeah, the coach goes, "I only have 4 rounds to work with," and basically, Doug just tries to talk to him calmly. He's like, "Hey, man, if you run more pro-style offense, with multiple sets," and I'm like, "Dude, this is Pee-wee football. They're not running multiple sets."
He's trying to get on his good side, so then he can say, "Hey, my son, it's like you should put my son in.
He'll help you out. Yeah, he'll make it. He'll make it better." And then the coach is like, "You know what, you do it." He hands him the whistle and the clipboard and just quits. And then there's a cut to I believe dinner at the house, and then the son's all happy because hey, we actually we scored today and stuff like that.
I think this was the lead in to then when he tells her that she can take her job, and then that was the lead into that. So
what is interesting about the movie is that you get side little story wrinkles, I like to call them, and there's no real follow-up to them. They're just kind of there. We never see him actually coaching this Pee-wee Suns team. We never. It's filling out.
It's filling out the characters, giving him a little bit.
It's just showing what he's able to do now. Now that he has a clone doing his other work.
Yeah. So going back to jumping back forward. So the kids are kind of taking advantage of the fact that they have their dad watching them. So they're going crazy. He's on the phone with somebody. The daughter is banging, spoons and forks on plates, and he's trying to cut a plastic wrap with a saw, which is ridiculous.
This is the Mr. Mom moment of the movie.
And so and he's trying to microwave a pizza with, I don't know what the hell he's doing. And he's got a pizza in his hand. And then the son comes in, takes the radio that's playing some annoying kid song on it, and they run around calling each other duty heads. Duty head! Duty head! And then, of course, they're going crazy, and then he yells at him and says, go to your rooms. And he's like, "Hey, can we have cake?" And then, then he runs him off. And then this is where I think he starts to... I think this is where he goes to see does he go to the boat, to the dock? Maybe? Or does he go... or maybe is...
We see a kind of a side... I can't remember. That's not until...
Or is the dinner next?
Clone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say... Because there's 2 boat scenes. Or
yeah. There's a couple boat scenes.
Sequences.
But I think he tries to go sailing, and then, it wasn't a good experience. And then he's he goes up to see the guy that runs the dock, and he's just like... it was a bumper cars out there, and he's like... It's you want this T-shirt? He's like, you sailed with Walden or whatever it is. He's like,
oh yeah.
And he's like, can I get one of them shirts that says, I got a refund with Walden?
Yeah. I can't remember. Oh, man, I can't remember if that happens
before later.
Yeah, because I know later on he does go on the boat.
I think it is later. So. I think the dinner scene is next, and it's right. So he goes to dinner with his wife.
And
and
and they're there, and then of course coincidentally, his clone is also there on a date with someone.
Yeah, with somebody that works in the office.
Yeah, or someone that's somehow connected to his job. And so there's a scene of like physical comedy where like at one point they see each other and then oh shit.
Yeah, well, see, the original Doug is there because now he's kind of going back on things. He's like, look, I'm going to need you to quit your job. Things were a lot better when you were at home, so I can't get things done, So, of course, she's upset because she's loving going back to work. And Doug's, doing his best to try to be tough about it, but he knows he's not making sense. So then he does notice that the other Doug's there, and they both kind of like, he's like chokes on a piece of food as he's like, and
as he sees them, and then they try to avoid each other. They try to avoid the each person they're with to see the other person.
Yeah, they try to make their way into the bathroom.
Problem.
They both go to the bathroom.
They both go to the bathroom, and he talks to the other Doug, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Well, I've got to do. I gotta do something."
I haven't seen Laura. I haven't seen Laura in weeks. Like I don't like. I have my own life too.
I'm not allowed to see her. Basically,
yeah. I mean, I'm not a monk. Like I can't like just work and then like I have needs too. Basically, so he's
not only that, but it's like you get to see, and I mean, like I said, this movie is basically all surface level. But it, just kind of pulling back the layers a little bit, it does show, regardless of whether this person's a clone, they're still human, like you said, still has human needs, but also still has a human desire for some things other than just work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like recreational activities.
You could say
going out to dinner.
You could say in a sense
et cetera.
that, this part of Doug, if it wasn't so literal and you just said, hey, this is the worker, this could be the potential future of the Doug who only cares about work, because, this Doug knows the memories of and the thoughts of Doug, before. So at some point he did think about this woman that he's with as attractive.
Oh, okay.
If you think about it that way, this could be.
Well, he does straight up ask him. Doesn't he? Yeah.
Well, he says it's like he's like they both obviously are attracted. I mean, they're attracted to her. He's like, but you can't. Right. He's like, you can't cheat on Laura. He's like, I don't see Laura.
I've never seen Laura. I don't see Laura.
Yeah, I mean,
so for him, it's not.
It's not cheating.
I mean, no, but it's odd though because is he just? This is where we have to ask ourselves the question: is he just is he Doug or is he more than Doug? You know what I mean?
Once he's been separated and he's had different experiences, now he's not Doug anymore.
Yeah. Do our experiences basically define who we are as people? Yeah. That's a kind of a whole.
It's part. And
discussion.
And like I said, it kind of the splits off of Doug. I would say maybe except for the last Doug that they create.
Yeah, that
he's more there. He's more there for
comedic
purposes. But the other two Dougs play on both sides of his psyche, and and you could say that they're looked at as potential pathways. But so they're both in there and they're talking, and then suddenly one of the hosts of the restaurant comes in, and so he dunks the original Doug dunks Doug too into the to the sink, and he's just like, I'm washing his face. You never seen a guy wash another guy?
Because they're both in the bathroom together,
yeah,
like next to each other, and they're all doing the same like mannerisms while they're using the restroom. Like
zip up their pants at the same time,
same way, and like move their shoulders the same way, and it's interesting how they were able to
pull it off,
that all to sync up.
Yeah, and so the guy walks in and the original Doug dunks Doug 2 into the sink, and he's like, "What's wrong? You never seen a guy wash another guy's face?" It's like he's like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, okay." And then he leaves, and then he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "That guy walked in. I had to do something." So I think original Doug comes out first, but then the date that Doug 2 was on with sees him first, so he has to go to her. And then, the opposite happens. Doug 2 goes to the wife. So now they don't know what the other was having conversations. They don't know what they were talking about. So Doug 2 goes back over, and the wife's like, I don't want to argue about this. He's like, argue about what? He's like, me going back to work. He's like, yeah, we shouldn't argue about that. Don't worry about that. So then he goes back on what he said, and then he decides that he's going to distract her by kissing her. And, yeah.
Even before that, he uses like a menu, which I think is kind of funny. He's using a menu just like, oh, yeah, what are we going to order? And then it's like, then she goes, that's the wine menu.
Oh, yeah, I thought there was an awful lot of beverages on here.
Yeah, awful lot of beverages here.
But, so he's like, you love me? He's like, yeah. He's like, kiss me. And then he kisses her and then, like, just really, like, deeply kisses her and pushes her down into the seat. And then it gives original Doug and the date a time to jump, to run out. Yeah. And they, like, sit down with another couple for a second, and they're like, "Did we know you?" He's like, "No." And then they run. They get out eventually, and then so this, I think, is when we're introduced to the next clone, right?
Yes, and I was gonna say, like, the next scene.
You see,
Doug 2 is sitting on the couch watching a basketball game, and then the original Doug walks in and introduces us to now Doug 3, or what's his name called? He's like Rico?
Well, he calls himself Rico later, but like I said, I think that was just for that particular, for the ladies. They don't rename themselves that through the whole movie.
So now we have Doug 3.
Yeah.
And Doug 3 represents the other side of Doug.
The sensitive side.
Yeah. The more feminine side, the more understanding side. Some people call him,
the gay Doug.
The gay clone of Doug and stuff that.
I mean, you could take it that way, but I don't think so. I think it's just he's the...
They really don't get into the... I mean...
I would say probably for that time period, they were going for the feminineness, and it was supposed to be taken as maybe like he was gay, but he was...
That's such a 90s thing, though.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's some things in here that are very 90s, and I feel like the idea of the, feminine automatically equaling that someone is, gay or homosexual is kind of such a 90s stereotype.
Today it would be metrosexual.
On in the movie.
It would be metrosexual today.
Yeah, perhaps metrosexual, or it could even be bisexual.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It doesn't... They really don't delve into that, but all we know is he's just the opposite of Doug number 2, who is the masculine Doug. And then, of course, the masculine Doug 2 is
like no.
Like, what? Yeah, what? Where's he gonna live?
Right here with you.
Where's he gonna stay? He's like, right here with you. He's like, hey, you needed a you said you needed a friend and you were lonely, and here you go. Here's your friend.
You got a roommate. Hey, roommate. It's
And I mean, basically, Doug 3 is kind of gonna handle the
day-to-day
the home stuff.
Yeah.
The home stuff, the cooking and the cleaning and all that kind of stuff. Yet again, kind of feeding into that feminine stereotype and whatnot. The idea that, that those are quote unquote, feminine acts are like, the cooking and the cleaning, which are typically seen as, things that women only do. It's just that old world traditional styling that's extremely outdated. But it's just like that's what he's going to be doing there. And basically it leaves up, original Doug to do whatever he wants.
Go
sailing.
He actually, I think that's where the sailing scene comes in. But so like the next morning we get our first scene with him and the family, with Doug 3 and the family, and he's, helping get the kids ready for school, and then he's like, I'll drive the kids to school. You take some time for yourself. To Andy McDowell's character, and he's like, and when you get home, I'll give you a foot rub. Oh, and through the window, you see Doug 1, and he's like watching. He's like, "Oh, okay, good job." So then that's when I think he goes off and does the sailing thing, and it doesn't work out. And he when he's talking with the guy that runs the dock, he says that they have this like boat that they take out, him and this woman that runs the dock with him, and says that he should come back and take him and his wife out with it. So that that comes back later. And then I think we see him bungee jump.
Oh yeah, there's one part where he like bungee jumps like off a dock or something.
Yeah.
A bridge, and I guess he just He's just living free.
Yeah, he's
I guess.
doing things that he probably thought about. You could also say this is kind of like midlife crisis movie. Like he's doing.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Like he's doing things he had maybe never got a chance to do or whatever. He goes to a Lakers game.
Yeah, because it's and he calls
Doug.
He calls Doug 3, and he's like, yeah, I was on my way home, but I decided to stop at the Lakers game, and it's like, yeah, I'll be home soon, whatever, and like because Doug 3 is like, I guess they have to switch off at some point.
Well, yeah, at some point they got to switch off, so he gets back late, but everybody's already in bed, so he's kind of like getting in bed like it's normal.
And Doug 3 is there, and he like freaks out.
Yeah. And the original Doug just like falls off the bed and just like,
And then Doug 3 plays it off as like, yeah, I just had
he's like, oh, I had a bad dream. And she's like, what was the dream about? He's like, I don't know, I was sleeping. So it's like, yeah, so, he's like, just go back to sleep. And so then it cuts to original Doug bringing 3 into the apartment.
Yeah, he's like, what were you doing? Like, yeah.
And Doug 2 is just loving it. He's just like sitting back like, what? Like you?
Yeah, and but he also asked him like, "Oh, who won the Lakers?"
He's like, "What were you sleeping in bed with?" He's like, "What was the score of the game?" He's like, "Don't tell me. Ask me what the score of the game is. Lakers won."
That's all Doug 2 cares about.
Well, no, that was Doug 3 that asked him. It was Doug 3. Yeah, Doug 3 is like, "Yeah, who won the game?" He's like, He's like, "Don't try to distract me." He's like, "The Lakers won the game."
Yeah, he straight up asks him like, what happened?
Did you sleep with my wife? It's like, no.
Right.
It's like, I mamboed out of there. She might have tried to touch. It's like, whoa.
Yes, you tried something. I mamboed out of there.
What do you mean she wanted to go to bed? And
we were sitting up watching TV, and all of a sudden she wanted to go to bed.
Yeah. So this is where the rule number 1 comes in. He's like,
right.
It's like, this is a rule. You don't even want to you don't even bend this rule. It's like, no sleeping with my wife. No clone nookie. Okay? It's like original nookie only. And so then they're like, yeah, of course, like, yeah. And so Doug leaves, and then 2 and 3 are together, and he's like, did you do it? He's like, no. It's like, wimp.
But
yeah.
And then they decided, I know this happens, I don't know if you want to jump straight to this, but they decide to make another clone themselves. Or do you want to go into something before?
Well, I'm trying to remember how quickly I don't know if there was something between that or not.
I think what we saw between that was there was a sailing trip between original Doug, and I
don't think he goes on that sailing trip yet.
No, not yet. But no, he with Julie Bowen, who is just randomly shows up in the movie. And Julie Bowen, for people who don't know, she was in Happy Gilmore. Yeah. She was in that show Modern Family, which just ended. And he gets off the boat with her, and the doctor's there, and the doctor invites him and his wife to go sailing.
Yeah.
With he and his wife, and they'll go to Catalina, right? And he says like, oh yeah, like we'll leave you alone so you can basically make love on the boat and stuff like that. And it's like, oh okay, doctor,
yeah,
whatever. And so
yeah, they get invited out, and then this is another scene I think where it starts to cause more problems with the wife. Like, so she asks him about like going to Disneyland.
Yeah, she makes like a non-refundable trip to Orlando.
But of course he doesn't know about it because he wasn't there to hear it. Because 3 was there, and he's the one that knows about it.
Yeah, and he's the one that gave the okay.
Yeah,
like he's the one and she's like, you told me I could do it.
Yeah,
and then.
So it's causing more friction. She's like, you could have multiple personality disorder, bipolar. He's like, no, like I don't.
Well, and it just goes to show that this is both a blessing and a curse, because he's missing out on all of these
family moments,
these family moments and details, and decisions.
He's getting
kind of
it over his head.
Financial decisions and things like that.
He's deciding to not. He's trying to deal with stuff by not dealing with it, and it's not. And he's kind of having his you could say selfish moment to try to figure. Like I said, midlife crisis.
Yes.
So this is, I think, when he like gets surprised by the third Doug.
Yes, where he goes up to talk to the other Dougs, and aren't they like
just watching TV
like
or something?
Are they watching TV, or is this the time when they're on like a double date?
I guess the double date happens in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Yeah, this must be the double date where he walks in there and
So there's loud music. It wakes him up in the middle of the night.
Yes, yeah, and it's like, oh, what's playing?
This is how we do it.
Yeah, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. Very 90s right there.
And we have Lance and Rico.
Yeah, Lance and Rico. That's when they first start using those names, which I've been saying this whole time. But and they're on like a double date up there, and it's like, I guess they must have convinced these women that they're twins.
Yeah.
And they also live above a garage.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like there's
Lance, who is the number 2.
There's a lot of stuff in this movie that makes no sense.
Yeah, Lance, who's number 2, is dancing with the girl, sexy and everything.
Very sexual.
And Rico, who's number 3, is just kind of sitting there like, God, I want to do that, but I'm too much of a pussy. And, he's roughly, he's like
nervous.
He's really nervous. He doesn't want to do it, and so he suddenly, number 1 comes in and he's like, "What are you doing? You can't just bring women up here." And it's like, "What are we supposed to live like a bunch of monks?" Like, and then the girls, of course, are like, "Whoa, how many of them are you?" It's like, one is cuter than the next.
There's a running joke throughout the movie where he keeps like complimenting them on their looks.
It's like, you're two good-looking guys.
Yeah, good-looking guys, and it's himself.
Yeah, of course. But then he makes the girls leave, and of course they're pissed, and he's like, "Could you go out the back alley? Like keep quiet." It's like, "Sure." And then like they yell goodnight to Lance and Rico, and then they leave.
Yeah, and this is when he comes up with the idea that, okay, he's gonna go on that boat.
Well, no. What happens is after, as this argument's happening, then he realizes he runs to the bathroom. He runs towards the bathroom to go in the bathroom, and then that's when 3 is there. Remember? That's when 3 is.
Okay, yeah.
That's when 3 is introduced. He like walks by and he's like, he comes back out and he's like, 1, 2, 3.
Well, no, he would be number 4, wouldn't he?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The 4th one.
Yeah. He's Doug. Yeah, he's Doug 4.
Yeah. So he comes back out.
You said 3.
He sees him and he's like, he counts himself. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 says 12.
Yeah, and now we're introduced to
4.
Lenny, basically, who called himself Lenny, and
Steve.
He's a
and he calls Doug Steve.
One of the clones,
and he calls Doug Steve.
Yeah, he calls Doug Steve, and he's a clone of one of the clones, and then Rico basically, I don't know if it's Rico or Lance, explains to him that a copy of a copy isn't as good as a copy from the original or something like that, and
so he's special.
Yeah, it's yet again, it's a dated aspect of the movie where they're using mental illness and things like that for comedic purposes.
Sure,
which is a very 90s thing to do. Growing up in the 90s, that was a thing that happened a lot. So was using like homosexuality for comedy and all this kind of stuff, and transgender, the trans community for comedy and all that kind of stuff. And it's and that's one of the negative things I don't like about the movie. Is the Doug 4 is so unnecessary, and it's just in there just as for comedy reasons.
Sure. And
some of the comedy isn't exactly great. It's just like forced,
it's just
I would
super
say.
goofy.
I don't know if that's
it's
me
super
from just
goofy.
a modern perspective.
But
yeah.
So yeah.
And so, but he just kind of pops in and just does random like comedic stuff.
Yeah. Like
the way he's brushing his teeth, or the way like he's like shaving his face, or something like that. And this is when Doug comes up with the plan that he's gonna go on this boat trip to Catalina, but he basically needs
3
to stay with his wife so that he can go.
And he reminds him about rule number 1.
Right. So he goes. So he goes to the boat, and like the doctor's like, "Oh, where's your wife?" He's like, "Oh yeah, she's not gonna make it. She's not feeling well," or something like that. I mean, did he really have to go on this boat trip? Probably not. But I think he wanted, yet again, I think he wanted to do it for selfish reasons. There's a lot of, we've been talking about a lot of like selfish Doug. And I think just making the clones itself, I think, is a selfish thing.
Well, I mean, I think that what
instead of addressing the issue.
Yeah, I think what he learns over time is that it's about he needs to repurpose his life goals. Like he's working just to work and just to get by when he's not not really living life. He's just getting through life, just trying to make it. And so he figures out that especially when events happen near the end of the movie, that he needs to repurpose his outlook on life and make changes and not just add to the problem.
And what is fascinating to me is the whole time he's on the boat trip, he's just vomiting over the side. Yeah. So I'm like, well, was it really worth it for all this?
I guess not.
And it's kind of funny because his dogs are just like following him around while he's crawling from one side of the boat to the other to vomit.
I think what it kind of symbolizes is that when he's not with his family, he's miserable.
Well, not only that, it even goes to show once again, no matter, now he's got, 2 clones doing things for him, and he's still hitting walls.
Yeah, it's still not working, yes. Yeah. So
it's still not
working. Yeah, so what happens is he goes off on the trip, and we go back to Doug 3, who's, doing his thing, and
he's trying his hardest to stay vigilant.
Yeah, so
stay on task. So
Andy McDowell comes out with a nice,
I know. I mean, she looks very, very attractive.
Yes.
And she's really, hard pressing him sexually. And they had this whole idea where he would, like, if anything happens, fake like you're sick.
Yeah.
Like, start coughing and they like, I can't do it. Just start coughing. Yeah. And he tries it. And
it doesn't work.
It does not work. And this is when we drift into another, I would say, dated, problematic point of the movie for many. I mean, even me included, is this, it's tough to navigate these shores here. But, like, so they end up sleeping together, and then through a series of situations, she ends up kind of sleeping with all of the clones.
Yeah. Well, right? I mean, we go through it, but, like...
We'll go through it, but, I mean, like, that's what ends up happening, and it's supposed to be funny in context of when it came out, but from a modern perspective, it's kind of gross. It's kind of... It
is definitely gross, definitely.
Yeah, it's gross in the sense, like, you come up with all of these ideas, like, consent and things like that, and then we come up with this whole, and then we, we kind of go back to what we were talking about before. Are they Doug, or are these clones more than just Doug? Are they their own people? And if they are their own people, then we drift into...
Well, I think probably in a simplified point of view, you could say they're just copies of Doug, so they are Doug. I mean, they even say it in the movie, I am you. So what's the harm, right?
But, like, we've been saying that they all have their own personality traits. They all have their own wants and needs.
Yeah.
So are they their own people as well? And it's like, and when we get into that area, it gets a lot more, gross.
Honestly, it is. I mean, and I'm not going to sit here and defend them elements of the movie. I agree with you. But, sometimes there's things that are dated about the movies that you love. And,
of course.
And you take what you can and, you just, that's a lot of movies, especially older films, there's got to be context, and then,
oh, yeah. I mean, I see this all the time. I mean, especially in today's culture, where people tend to, they don't take the context of the movie. They don't go into any type of research or backstory or context or anything like that, and we'll just automatically dismiss something that was made 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And I'm like, well, things evolve over time. People, things move and change constantly. You can't apply modern day context to something that happened 20, 30, 40, 50,
and it's
60,
okay to be upset
ago.
about them things.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's no, like, you can be like, hey, you know what, I don't like that because it's gross, and I don't, you know what I mean? Like, in this context, you can be like, you know what, I think that this is non-consensual sex, therefore it is raped in certain perspectives. Sure. You can have that argument, and
if anything, it's definitely manipulative. Obviously, I mean, I don't know that I'd say rape, but it's definitely gross. It's like if you had an actual twin and you got your twin to sleep with somebody unknowingly.
Yeah. Which sadly I'm pretty sure happens.
I'm sure it happens, but
it's pretty terrible.
But so getting back on track,
getting back into the plot. Like I just wanted to like point that out to make that sure to people out there that it's a problematic element.
It's supposed
to
to be
movie.
comedic. That
and
basically
they
rule number
heavily comedic.
But basically that rule number 1 was thrown out the window, broken.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not sadistic. It's not sadistic, but it's still problematic.
Sure.
Like we're not talking like Straw Dogs level of sadistic sexual assault here.
So basically,
like
what
that.
happens is
we don't even see the sex.
You don't even really see
the
sex happen. So it's like he wakes up with her with number 3, and he talks about how she's like, "What? It was interesting that you cried." He's like, "Yeah,
yeah, I've never seen you react like that before."
Yeah, I don't know what it is. And so she's like, "I want to get some, ice cream or something." And he's like, "No, I'm good." So she goes down by herself, and then we cut to 2 and 4 who are up in the apartment, and 4 is just terrorizing the place. He's eating everything in the whole apartment. He's like, "Did you eat the bologna?" He's like, "Did you eat all the food?" And he's like, "Count Chocula."
Oh, we also know that he likes pizza.
He likes pizza a lot.
That's important.
I'm pretty sure this.
I mean, who doesn't?
I'm pretty sure he used me as a reference for the character because Steve is my name, Steven, and I do like pizza. So
that's true.
Yeah.
What is? I mean, like I said earlier, you see, it's really fascinating the way Keaton plays all these different characters.
Yeah.
Like I said, really shows his range, diversity and range.
I mean, we already know
even in 4.
I mean, we already know he's got range. I mean, Beetlejuice but this is him playing a normal person,
But it's all within the same movie.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, he's basically playing 4 different characters in the same movie.
With one character having a full arc.
With
going through a change, basically. Yeah. And so, he eats all the food, and so number 2's like, I gotta go in the house. I gotta go in the main house.
Yeah, I gotta go get some food.
So he goes in the kitchen, and there's Andie MacDowell just in a shirt, just in like this button-down shirt, And
she's eating
ice cream
or something.
And he's like, oh, shit, He's like, oh, you decided you want some. Come over here. So then he's like, I will have some.
He resists as well.
He kind of resists for like 5 seconds, and then she jumps up on him.
Masculine Doug. Yeah. And they end up sleeping together on the couch.
Yeah.
Yeah, he like lifts her up.
He
like
throws her on the couch, and he jumps over the couch. Yeah.
And then and there's
And then it cuts till time later, and she's like, ooh, that was really athletic. It's like, that's better than the Stairmaster.
Yeah, and then he leaves, and then she goes upstairs.
Well, what happens is it starts to rain.
Yeah, and it starts to rain. Yeah.
And so she's like, oh, the windows on the car are still down. So he runs out there to close the car windows, and at the same time, number 4, who's been outside, runs in, who's drenched now.
Well, as she's going upstairs, he yells up the stairs. Lance,
yeah, he tells number.
He's like, yeah, okay,
all right, honey, I'll go do that.
Yeah, to tell the other one that
to hint to number 2 that she's coming back up, and you're going to need to hide.
He's going to need to hide. So, and then that's when 4 comes in.
Yeah,
and then she sees him
drenched,
and she's like, oh, you got all drenched. So she brings him up to the bathroom where
she's undressing him.
Is hiding in the shower.
Yeah, number 2's in the shower hiding, and so she's undressing 4, getting the wet clothes off, and then of course he has an erection, and she's just like, wow.
Yep.
And then his face, number 4's face looking at number 2, he's just like, yep, that's me. And she's like, again? You need to have sex again? Okay.
Yep, and then that. Yep.
He calls it his peppy. He calls it his peppy.
Yeah. So all the rules are broken, and then I think So this is when
Doug comes back.
Doug does come back, and basically he does find out that they all broke that rule.
Well, actually, I mean, it goes bad first.
Does she have the scene with number 4 before he comes back and talks with all of them?
Yeah. So
yes.
Yeah. So what happens actually next is that number 2 gets sick, from going out in the rain. It gets sick, and so they had
got a cold.
Yeah, they had a big job that he needed to, they were having an inspection.
Yeah, the inspectors were coming in,
and so number 3 has to cover for him because he's sick.
And of course, number 3 doesn't know
anything about the job. Yeah.
Doesn't know about construction or anything.
Well,
like
he
that.
knows about construction, but he doesn't know the job. I mean, like he's
right, but they're asking him questions like, "Oh, why did you, make,
They were talking about like a gas line and how they only
there's like a separation of like why'd you use 2-inch versus why'd you use 1-inch versus 2-inch, and then so he calls up, Doug number 2 because basically to save money and whatnot. But anywho, that gets botched. And they end up getting fired.
Yeah, so
Doug ends up getting fired.
Yeah, so now that's when now the original Doug comes home and he finds out that, and then Doug 4. Okay, yeah, Doug 4's in the garage doing God knows what, and
probably shouldn't be around whatever tools and stuff are in that garage.
Yeah,
and then so basically Andy McDowell's kind of have this serious, like. Not breakdown mode, but serious.
Well, yeah, because right before that, she ran into number 2, who was sick, and number 2, because she apparently moved around stuff during the day so that he can go to that meeting, to go to that inspection, and he's like, "Well, I missed it, I guess." And she's like, "But I moved around my day," and he's like, "What do you want, a medal or something?" Like,
yeah.
And then she slaps him,
being an ass.
and then she goes to talk to him later, but it's number 4 in the garage doing whatever. He's got a saw in his hand. That's not good. And so she doesn't ever really see his face, and she's like expressing herself, saying like, "When you talk to me like that, it makes me feel like you don't care. You say you're gonna fix things, but you never do." And then what does number 4 have to say? "I want pizza."
Yeah, I want pizza.
She's like, "What do you want?" And he's like, "I want pizza. Give me a pizza."
Yeah, she also mentioned like he never he promised her that he would fix up the house, and he never did. And yeah, that's when the whole pizza thing. And then basically she gets all upset and takes the kids and leaves.
It goes to her parents'
goes
house.
To her parents. Yeah.
So then the original
Doug returns. Yeah. And he learns that his wife has left. He's lost his job, and all the clones have slept with his wife. So his
rock bottom.
plan of having all these clones is just fallen into pieces.
Yeah.
And so basically his grand plan to win her back is to have all of them.
Well, he doesn't know what to do at first, and then he kind of gets it from number 4 that he heard some stuff, and then he's like starts to bribe him with Coca-Cola.
As one does. And
he's just like, "I don't remember," and he like pours some like Coca-Cola in his glass, and he's like, "She says you don't fix stuff." He's like, "What? I don't fix stuff." "Yeah, she's scared. Says you don't fix stuff." And so he figures it out that, she is upset that he's not at the things he promised he's not, living up to and not being a good husband and not being a good father. And so he decides he's going to, fix up the house and the backyard.
He enlists the help of all the clones.
They all get their own shirt with their number on it.
Yeah, we get a fixing up, building up montage.
And then who else comes back? Eugene Levy
shows up. Yeah, Eugene Levy shows up.
Or Eugene Levy, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the director, Sean Levy.
You are thinking, yeah. Anyway, they so they're all like fixing up, and
it's funny is he sees all the twins. The thing is there's a scene where he meets all the Dougs at once.
All the Dougs.
And he just looks at him. He's like, "All right, let's get to work." And he's just like,
"Let's roll."
All right,
let's just do it. And so they end up doing it. They end up fixing up the house, and then there's an emotional moment between.
Well, there's a scene where he goes to
get his wife, win her back.
Yeah, he goes to get her. And he's like, he tries to act all tough at first, like masculine. He's just like I'm not gonna beg. I'm not gonna do it. And then she's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Oh, please," like breaks down. He's like, "Please come home." He's like, "Just come home. I need to show you something." Like, and so he brings her home and surprises her with the house looking like awesome. And she loves it.
And she loves it, and he has a whole
spiel about how he
knows
knows that
he loves her and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then a reconciliation occurs, and then all the Dougs move away. All three of them.
Well, yeah. So we're at the end, and now that it's time for them to move on, and they all gather in some kind of convertible.
convertible. I don't know where they got that
Yeah,
from, but
yeah.
yeah.
And I think it was an old car he had in the garage that we never saw. Maybe.
Makes sense.
And so they're leaving, and they're saying they're gonna go to California.
Yeah, but she sees them in the car.
Or maybe it was Florida. Was it Florida?
Yeah, they go to Miami.
Yeah, they go to Miami, yeah.
Because they're in California, but they say they're going to stop in Las Vegas on the way.
Yeah.
But she sees them in the car, and then she's like, thinks she's hallucinating. And she's like, she tells her kids, like, you can really tell when you love someone when you see them everywhere.
Yeah.
Or everything reminds them of you.
Yeah.
Of them. Everything reminds you of them. And... yeah, and then there's a whole kind of narration at the end where they moved to Miami, Florida, and they started a pizzeria called Three Guys from Nowhere in Miami, and they're masquerading as triplets.
Yeah.
And Lance is the businessman of the shop and serves the customers, and I think Rico is
he's doing he's cooking
pizzas. And Lenny is the delivery boy who thinks he's a paper boy and starts. And he's throwing the pizzas on people's lawns.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie ends, is like him mid-throw.
Yeah.
On a bicycle.
Yep. Well, that's
the end of the movie. That's the end of Multiplicity.
That's Multiplicity. So how do you feel, Andrew, about the movie?
Initially I watched it. The movie's like nearly 2 hours long. It feels a little too long for its plot a little bit. I felt like the first hour moved really fast and the second hour is slower. It does get into its main plot very quickly. I think Michael Keaton's great in it. I think he's fantastic, and I think Andy McDowell for the little role she's in is fantastic as always. There's some like I said, like dated issues with it and stuff like that, and stuff that doesn't really quite hold up to today. But I don't think it's a terrible movie. It's not a great movie. It's kind of in the middle for me.
Sure,
I would say
you find it to be an average
There's
movie.
some fun parts, and there's some comedy that works, some comedy that doesn't work.
Yeah, I think me liking it a little more than you is more nostalgia for me because I saw it.
Yeah, you've probably seen it multiple times.
Yeah, Multiplicity.
Multiplicity. You've seen it multiplicity times.
I have.
Also, that the movie poster is terribly misleading.
It's making you think there's going to be like 50 Dougs.
I thought there was like 7 or 8 clones. No, there's like 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's Doug 2, 3, and 4. There's only 3 clones, and original was only 4 guys.
Yeah.
They make it seem as if there's like 10 of these guys, and I'm like, what?
Maybe there'll be sequels. I don't know. No.
Yeah, who knows?
But
who knows?
Yeah, I've seen this a lot of times. I've probably seen this movie 10 or 15 times, and I really enjoy it. I saw we both used Letterboxd, and you gave it a 3, which is I think is good.
Out of 5.
Yeah, 3 out of 5. I think that's a good rating. I'd probably give it maybe a half a star higher, maybe like a 3.5.
Yeah, it's in that 3, little between 3.5 for me personally. Like I said, mid-range.
Yeah.
Mid-range comedy for me. I mean, the IMDb rating, for those of you who gives a crap about the IMDb rating,
6.1.
I think is like, is it 6.1? Yeah, 6.1, which makes some sense to me. But obviously, IMDb ratings are not the end-all be-all, and they're usually woefully inaccurate because people can manipulate the heck out of those ratings by like rating something either really high or really low and kind of just effing with the rating. And also ratings in general are kind of
everything is subjective, guys. You can like it or you don't.
Yeah,
I know. Sometimes it's tough when we like certain episodes we have a hard time keeping up with the plot in the right order. But we hope that if you're listening to this, you've seen the movie and so you're kind of with us. Yeah, that's Multiplicity. Now we're at this point where.
Oh no!
We have to pitch next episode, so it's Andrew's turn, and
oh my goodness!
He kind of hinted that he wanted to do something light again, so I don't know.
Yeah, I want to go light again, just because we've been going so heavy to start off this new phase of the podcast, and man, I was thinking
he wants to do the whole series of The Wire. No, I was kidding.
Yeah. We'll do all of the movies of the Human Condition.
Oh, okay. Let's do that.
Let's do all of them. But I'm thinking, this is a modern film.
Modern?
And I think it's gonna, yeah. I want to do it.
Okay. Go for it, man.
I want to do it. I want to do it mostly because I know Steven's going to dig it. And I think it's a film that more people need to see. And I keep telling people to watch it, but no one listens. No one listens to me. I'm going to go with Sing Street.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
Andrew
I'm
loves me.
John Carney, 2016. I don't know. I wanted to do something that's because I love the coming of age story.
Yeah.
And, they always make coming of age films, and there's a lot of repetition in coming of age films, but this one has nuance to it. And I was gonna do this, or I was gonna do Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. It's another one of my favorite kind of coming of age films. But that would have that movie makes me weep at the end. So
we don't need Andrew crying
lighter
on the podcast. Yeah. That might be a little rough.
I think this came out around the same time as Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, I think.
Sing Street might be a little bit newer.
Later, yeah. I want to say that Me and Earl and the Dying Girl is probably like 2014? No, 15, so I was close. But I wanted to do Sing Street. It's modern, and, it's a musical, and I know there are a lot of people who don't like musicals out there, so hopefully this would be something that could convince people to watch.
We could also debate on...
Especially John Carney.
We could also debate on the fact that the term musical, because I don't agree with the term musical with this movie, but...
Really? What would you
I
say?
mean, it's definitely a movie about music, but a musical, to me, is where music and reality meld together. Like you're singing in the rains, or your West Side Stories where people break into song.
Right.
To me, music is the mechanism of the story, so it's about music. I wouldn't say musical.
The only reason I say musical is because there are literally.
I think you could broadly
musical sequences.
You
in the
could
movie.
definitely broadly say that this is a musical, but I guess in my mind, just like how you organize your movie collection very strategically, I organize that in my mind as being not traditional musical. So I just say it's a movie about music.
Yeah,
and the love.
I wouldn't disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean it's something very much I'm very in the small group there that thinks that way, but yeah, I love. Might as well be my pick. Andrew, the last couple picks, he's basically been picking my stuff I want to watch. So I need to do him a favor on the next one.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Throw me a bone here.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw you a bone on the next one.
It's a modern coming of age movie that I think was woefully underrated in 2016. I know
it was the year La La Land came out.
Yeah, and La La Land kind of stole it in terms of the music aspects to it. Kind of overshadowed everything in music that year. But it's a movie that I think Steven and I bonded over from around the first time we met. Yeah. So it has kind of those origins to it as well.
And like you said, John Carney, I think he's a very underrated.
Yeah, we can get into his, like you like to call it, his
love and music trilogy.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he did two other movies before this. One called Once, which got nominated for some Oscars, and then then the middle movie.
I still haven't seen it.
It's great, yeah. And the middle
Begin Again.
Yeah, Begin Again's the middle movie, and that has Kieran. That's actually a American film, I think, technically.
It's got Mark Ruffalo, Keira Knightley, and what's his name?
Adam
Levine.
Which I think he's friends with him because he did music and he did a song for Sing Street.
Oh,
in that. It's the song at the very end of the movie is Adam Levine song.
Okay. And I really like the message of Sing Street. We'll get into that.
Yeah. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Next time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that is it for this episode of Cinema Discovery Project. Where can we find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Capzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me on Instagram at Cinema Discovery Project, or Letterboxd at Cinema Discovery. That will be it for this episode. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.